Welcome to One Word a Day. I'm Sophia, piloting into the universe of Chinese. Let's continue exploring classical China era's character. And today's character is, I hold it in such a high esteem among many, equally, probably not equal. Not all characters are created equal, but the cultural significance of it, the shadow it casts over millenniums um, is just amazing. I mean, as a Chinese, I was educated from the simplified Chinese environment. But then I'm doing this over 4 years now. It's my discovery journey. And like this character really put me kind of grounded me again on how much I don't know, how much I want to learn. And today's special character is Gua. Because I've heard it is in the pop culture so much. And when English culture represent, okay, Chinese ancient Oriental philosophy, Tai Chi or I Ching or Zen even, and this is almost like the next layer of things, which is what German scholars translate as a trigram. I will explain why, but it's a good translation. But gua, when I say trigram, in natural language processing, there is this trigram simply means three words often paired together, like the White House, like the White House. I don't know why that pops first into mind. Probably there are better trigrams example, but things often pair together. That's trigram. One definition, but here the trigram is totally different. It will make more sense when I explain to you in the next slide to give you a visual representation. But Gua is essential to Taoism as what I regard as the Chinese world modeling. And I trained as a statistician. One major principle of when you build a model is parsimony or parsimony. That is to basically pare down all the variables because the world is so complicated. It's almost like a destined to be multifactorial thing, and you want to keep adding variables to make the model to be more comprehensive. But there's a fine line, and actually, just like art, the better models actually are the simpler ones to explain, to apply to multiple situations. So this trigram is Chinese way to model not just the human world, but the whole cosmos. You can view it as, I don't know about a fortune telling, but the world culture of fortune telling, of like, you can see this is like a universal. Humans, we don't want uncertainty. We want to be able to forecast a little bit to before things happen, we want to know ahead of time what's going to happen, right? So that fortune telling is universally needed. And Chinese solution is to come up with this intricate, almost like a dial thing, to pare down how the world operates into this 8 blocks. And here is this 8 ba gua. So gua is this model effort, and it has a certain aesthetics as well. Okay, we can see it's made of 2 parts if we separate, follow the parsimony principle to cut things into two. Okay, left and right. The left are two repeated things, which if you have been on my channel long enough, you must have come across this icon so much because it's one of the building blocks of Chinese imagery of world building through language, that this is a soil symbol, two soils stack up. So at the beginning, I'm thinking, okay, so this just means a hill. Not necessarily true. Deceiving. It actually means ancient times ceremonial jade, which is a kind of a long, like a panel, but the bottom is rectangular. The top can be either triangle sharp or a dome shape. So that's a jade. So jade block in a particular shape used in ancient ceremony. And we can see it's, I guess, ancient kings or emperors' effort to communicate with the divinity, because even as the leader of the whole human community located over there in that language circle, they also are facing the uncertainty, and they want to know. And so this instrument probably served a certain forecasting or certain purpose. Then the second meaning of that part, the two soil symbols stacked up together, pronounced as a gui. And gui also is the Chinese sundial, this dial, this almost like a clock surface, right? I mean, clock is a Western invention to visualize time through a mechanical, like a gearing thing. But the Chinese way is to use the sun, track the movement of the sun through the sky to tell time. And that sundial have this needle, just unlike the clock, which is moving needle, two hands, right? Minute and hour. The sundial's needle is poking static, doesn't move. And then it's the sun that moves around and casts the shadow to tell the time. And so the surface of this tile grid line, is the gui, and this needle thing is nie. So gui nie eventually in Chinese means almost like the rule, the standard, because humans tell time. Time is felt, and it's kind of almost like time is relative, right? It can vary from people, person to person, region to region, right? You have different sun movement around different part, and then individuals may feel time differently. So to standardize, like non-arguably objective time tracking would be sundial, because hey, we're seeing the same sun. And so that sundial become the ultimate truth, like the ground truth, even if it comes from the sky, the shadow from the sky. And so that kind of equipment with measurements with grid lines, not exactly grid line, I don't know what it's called, the dial, right? So it has marks of time on there. It's the squeak on the left side. So you can tell it holds a special ceremonial jade instrument in ancient times. So it's a special equipment. And also the sundial as the surface of the dial, as the marker of time. That is also a special equipment. We unanimously come to agreement as the objective truth. That's the left part. The right part simply is fortune telling. And Chinese, I have a theory, kind of like a parsimony principle as well. The simpler the character here is just two strokes, just vertical line, horizontal line. And the simpler the character, the more essential that is to the humans, the language users back then. So you can see two strokes. You don't get any more simpler except the number one horizontal line, just one stroke. That means the origin, the sky, the universe, the number one thing. And then when it comes to two, we have a number two, right? Heaven and earth. That's a grand idea. That's our world, upper and the lower boundary. And then now we have this. And there is a kind of a intercept part in there without a passing. And that's two stroke. That means it's really, really essential. And it serves the fortune telling purpose there. So the use here, trigram, Chinese constructed as it's kind of a quantified and measured panel, kind of like a sundial, used for fortune telling And that dial, fortune-telling dial, is this 卦 concept. Okay, we have 占卦. 占 simply means, you can see this same, right? Except we have a mouse symbol at the same. At this 卜, okay, 卜 means fortune telling by itself. But here, this 占, later day, people add a mouse symbol. That means not only you do it, you fortune, predict, but you also tell. You not only forecast, right? You also tell, fortune tell has a fortune and a tell two part, right? You have to predict and you tell people, you interpret what's going to happen. And that tell, this mouse symbol added. So it's a forecast or fortune tell with trigram. So 占卦 simply is the act of fortune telling through using this device of trigram. It's not exactly a device, it's a whole philosophy. Okay, as I said, it's a Chinese world modeling. 变卦, change trigram. So eventually it becomes like everyday language. And 变卦, people no longer think about, it's about fortune telling through trigram thing. No, 变卦 simply means you have a certain setup. When you go out, say you want to do something and you want to know what's going to happen. You already have a trigram over there. But then some major condition changed. And then your whole calculation or prediction have to be scrapped. And that's 变卦. It's change of condition. And then you have to change your action course. Okay. 八卦, 8 trigram. Simply because a trigram is this, you can see here, it's made of 8. And here I'm going to explain, what we use 八卦 because it's made of 8 parts. And it's a very intricate way of modeling because from the beginning, we just start from one line, right? And then Chinese recognize there is a taiji thing. So it's this one things are not separated. It's just one big thing. So Chinese call it a taiji, great axis. We view the world coming with this one dimension. And from that one dimension split into two, we have then this bipolar, right? This yin and yang, at least two colors, two elements. And then we show 四象, so 4 象, probably aspects or looks. How it works, it will be beginning, we just use one, right? One line. And then we split into two. When we have the line that you can stay in the shape of connected, one stroke, or disconnected, 2 strokes, that gives a binary result. Either you're connected or disconnected. So that's almost like either positive or negative, right? Either white or black. From that, you can derive into 4, right? So it's like 2 to the power of 2. You come up to 4. In English world, today's business consulting, people habitually use this quadrants. That's same, or the coordinate system. Cut things into 4. Chinese, same idea. We have this 4 quadrant thing, except that we express it by connected line plus the second line, either connected or disconnected, and you can have this permutation of 4 kinds. Now we're at the third row of line, either connected or disconnected, and then you can see, okay, things doubled again. So it's a 2 to the power of 3, and that make it into 8, and that's the 8 trigram. And this trigram, this tri simply means there are 3 rows of it, and each row is a gram. And each row can come into connected or disconnected. And so that's because each line have 2 ways of existence, connected or disconnected, and there are 3 rows of them. Therefore, it's 2 to the third power. And that's how Chinese boil down everything into this 8 dimensions. And that's a granularity. Like either you want to view things in a bipolar view, right? Just yes or no, right or wrong, kind of absolute terms. Lost a lot of nuances and gradation or gradients in between left and right, the spectrum, right? But Chinese, when we have this 八卦, at least grade things into 8 possibilities, then that probably is sufficient enough to cover most of the situations in a general directional way to forecast what's going to happen. And eventually people come into even further granularity, comes into 64. And to me, that's a little bit too much. It lost its parsimony principle. So Bagua is kind of in a sweet spot of not so simplified, not just like English, the business consulting world use just 4 panels, quadrants, but we have 8 possibilities here. So there we go. Wow, Trigram. Thank you for your time. See you another day.